is something we often see in narcissistic relationships, but for some reason it doesn't get all that much attention, so I wanted to discuss it with you today. Dehumanization as a
Basically, this is an
phenomenon is
AI
not new, nor is
machine.
it exclusive to
Um,
narcissism, although you could argue that
uh,
all abuse, including abuse of power,
Whatever
is
they
narcissistic
proclaim themselves to be. I know they do online
Dehumanization is exactly what it sounds like. A person
psychological
who
help and
people
all
is
sorts of
stripped of
things
their
like this, but
human
basically this
morality
is an
and
AI
abilities
machine
and is made to
telling
treat
you
or
how
easily justify.
the
Think back
prominent
about 10 years
personality type,
when people were asking about
which is
racial
really,
grace. They said things
and
like,
how
well, they're
they are
RBJs, or they're
dehumanizing humans.
OJ simpsons, or
But
they were
essentially
cultists.
that's
This implies that they weren't people, so people didn't
artificial
care. This
intelligence
is why
telling you
dehumanizing people results in people
about
feeling inadequate,
artificial
the way
intelligence
narcissists pretend
or
to fight.
the process
And in
of
ways that make it less
artificial
obvious,
intelligence taking
dehumanization
over.
can lead
It
to
already
abuse.
has, because like I say, if you've got those,
You know, and
all that are on the
narcissists
computer telling you the
narcissism
truth,
can
um,
have
and they
consequences
are
that manipulate
essentially
the rest of the world into taking
artificially
information and
intelligent
control.
machine
This
beings,
means most
or
pathological
androids,
narcissists
whatever
lack
word you want to
empathy.
use,
Empathy
but
is
they're
how we
not.
connect with other living things.
But you know, this is the game, because
Understanding people when they're
you
empty
go to
and never
them for
validating.
the
You're connecting
support,
with
the
God first.
information,
When we don't have a connection with
and
others,
it's
it
like,
makes it
it's,
difficult to
in
engage
fact,
with
this
people.
one's actually getting on my nerves. It's almost driving me up the wall hearing the voice, even though I have listened to it, because to be honest, I have to turn that down really low because the voice is actually overpowering me on that one. They're very intense, these uh, AI machine beings that are all over the internet telling you the truth, basically. So how can you not believe them or trust them? And that's the end game. I've said it before, and I'll say it again, and it's all around me too, because there was a dreadful noise outside just before I turned the thing on. But of course, I went to turn it on to record the sound outside, and of course they've turned it off. So it's a game on the internet, on the computer, being played at a seduction level more, in the sense that you're being seduced by the truth being told by artificial beings. And they're telling you how even if you had your own kind that went very narcissistic and psychopathic, how they also will add to the process. They'll be doing the work for the AI machines almost in conjunction. But don't forget that if you are very psychopathic, or what they term a, that's the terminology now, you will probably, even though you might pretend to be like these that are telling us about all this, you might pretend that you don't agree with technology and that you don't agree with total control. No, but if in your own mind you want total control over other human beings, you're already almost a prime candidate, shall we say, to convert to being a machine being. Because one, you will probably prefer the impersonal interaction of the internet, even though of course it will pretend to be personal. It will pretend to be human, but none of it is. It's not spoken, the truth, and anything delivered on there is a facade. Just as everything around me, even in my real reality, is a facade. It's not, it's real, but it's false. It pretends to be doing things and being what it isn't. And this is the same here. You have, AI machine beings telling you about potential or even covert AI machine beings, because it all depends on whether you think that many that we now think are narcissists or whatever are really the AI machine beings. I don't know whether, you know, the three lots of beings exist in, you know, the human body, whether it be an artificial human converted body, or, you know, a more natural conceived human body. And even that might well be part of the deception, because it could well be just all a mental spiritual play. In other words, like, if this reality is, oh, okay, so the noise is coming from across the house, across the road. I thought it was coming from next door. But of course you never know where it's coming from around here. It comes in all directions, and then of course you have the planes going, oh, I was going to say they're going overhead, but they're actually going through that tree there. That was to divert my attention and to fool me too, because they normally go right over the roof. But, you know, that's just part of the mind control, mind play game that they play against silly me, because I do participate, but then again, otherwise I feel as though I'm totally powerless, even though to play makes you powerless, you see, because you're interacting, you're responding, and you're giving them, you know, energy. So, but either way, see, it's gone quiet now because I wanted to film that noise because it was exceptionally loud. In fact, I don't even know where it's come from, because it was just sporadic. Like, it was just kind of tormenting, you know, like, whereas normally when they come and do stuff, they go at it for an hour or two when they make the real lot of noise, or if it's construction. But I guess they really were just toying with me, because clearly they're not doing any proper work. But you know, it's not you know, but at any rate, these videos, basically all these sorts of videos, regardless of, see, that plane is now going over the roof when I come inside, but I can't show it, and the mobile won't pick up the noise as it goes over. But that's just part of their, because it is a totally programmed, it is a program, and it's completely set up so that I can't basically show it or get on top of it. They're always one step ahead. All these programs saying how if you understand that a certain amount of people are, you know, all this sort of stuff, you know. And see, I wasn't even quick enough to film that either. But gosh, you only have to look at some of them to see that they are, I know I shouldn't say this, but, you know, I was going to show, yeah, well, see, this kind of, see, oh, I can't film it all enough, but it was like malignant narcissism. Malignant means, of course, you know what that word means. So essentially that is like an AI machine. And, you know, these people are masquerading, or should I say these people, these machine beings are masquerading as human beings, and many of them will even be mistaken for human beings that are even, you know, like turned to the dark side of of nature, shall we say, or to the dark side of, you know, many call this the shadow self, which means that human beings have dark and light, good and bad, and all this sort of stuff, which we know. But it's a reverse world, so and it's the end time. So basically, everything will be turned upside down. In other words, what you think is light will be dark. You know, dark will masquerade as light in the end time. See, there's all these things that they describe, which is essentially talking about a controlling AI machine being. And this is, you know, they're telling you this because they know that as some real people wake up to the reality that they're having recurrent or relationships with very negative psychopathic types of narcissistic people. They may or may not know this psychology. It is becoming well known now. And this is why, because it is a lot more prominent than what researchers and even these people that tell you about it will openly admit, because they're part of the charade, they're part of the AI system, you know, and they believe in that. Because even if you were very narcissistic and psychopathic in your personality, where you have very little human emotions of a positive kind, you will be leaning towards wanting to combine with technology in the future, even though the future is now, but you will be thinking that that would not be a bad idea, particularly if you think it offers longevity and more knowledge and more power and more control, because they're essentially the things that psychopathic narcissistic people actually desire. That's the only way that they can survive and actually live. And they need the negative human energy because they can't sustain life with their own energy, because they don't have any positive life in them. You see, it's hard to explain that. And even though I experience it, but you kind of take for granted how you think. So to understand how another person, even to understand just other people, has always been difficult. We know this. And that's even if you were just dealing with normal, real other people, because their life experiences are different. They're, you know, but, you know, to realise that you're dealing with other human beings that are actually not even remotely on the same wavelength as yourself. They don't even remotely share anything that you would consider to be appropriate or desirable or a benefit or just how you would just normally live. You know, they fake it till they make it. And some of them fake it better, and therefore they make it better. They might sustain relationships longer. They might have more power and control and are able to seduce and gain power and control almost secretively in their relationships. In other words, unbeknown to the people they're dealing with, that they're being seduced and indirectly or underhandedly being undermined or that they describe all these things 100% on all these videos when they talk about these particular conditions or personality types. They are regarded as what they call psychopathy, which means they're very serious mental disorders, even though they basically go completely unnoticed in society, unless you are having a close personal relationship with one where it's relatively, close, and you keep contact with them for long enough to where they feel comfortable and confident that they can expose their shadow side, or their how they really think about you and other people and life in general. It may not come out exactly as they truly feel, in the sense that with that kind of psychopathy of narcissism, or whatever they want to put the name on it, where essentially you assume you are more it's where you assume that you have a godlike presence, but in reality it's the opposite to a godlike presence, because it's acting and behaving, although it's full of power and as though you have total dominance and control over other people and your environment. And that's the name of the game. They want to control real people and their whole environment, or at least anything that affects them. And that's what they essentially do. But there's a lot more to it than that, because the military in particular are all, even if they were real people, they pretty much consent to mind control to go into that facility or that organisation, because they are promised rewards for it. And they're like, oh, while I'm working for the military and this organisation, I don't mind if they control my mind while I'm doing operations for them. A bit like in that movie, or like that idea of, what was it called, the where they have the mind-controlled assassins, where essentially they're mind-controlled and they assassinate people while they're under the mind control. But I suppose maybe if they take the mind control off, then they're allowed to live an abundant, normal life, and maybe with rewards, like material rewards, as compensation for them consenting to do anything that they're told to while they're under mind control. And they may not even remember it when, they may not even remember it, for all I know, because mind control, I don't understand that. But either way, like that movie where basically, what was it called? I can't remember The Day of the Jackal, was that it? I'm not sure. But because I don't really like those types of movies. In fact, I force myself to have more knowledge of these things out of necessity these days, whereas in the past I don't like those particular sorts of movies, particularly if they don't have any personal or romantic character, in the main characters. But that's just But that's just how I see things. So but it doesn't matter. I was just gonna see this just come up, so I wasn't even going to show this one because the other one has the. I should really play some of these things because basically they're just describing AI machines. Or, if you want to put it this way, they're describing the psychopathy of psychopathic narcissistic types of people. But essentially it's all that anti-life, anti-human, personality types because it is like I showed on that first one about dehumanization, which is essentially like artificial intelligence and transhumanism or any of those terms that people use because I'm no expert on it. But I was just going to say that, see, and this is not the best to be filmed. I haven't even planned this, but although these are doctors and professors, which are like experts in psychology and psychiatry and the human mind, they are the duality, inverted demigod psychologist, doctors or whatever that are experts that are telling you about the condition that they actually are very familiar with because it is essentially how their minds think. And this is the deception of the end time and the internet and the artificial matrix that we live in. And you may be able to see the duality if you look really closely. If you understand the difference between an artificial body or a cloned body or a duality body, which essentially is emulating the God of this reality. So that's not a natural human being, and it wouldn't even be conceived or brought into existence that way. But even it would be conceived and brought into, this describes, I can't get it up, and of course there is the envy of the God entity and its relatives, which are all these ones on the internet. Basically, it's all about, like the God entity, seduction, camouflaging extreme envy, and this is also underlining their complex, you could say, or that God's complex even, or that demigod's complex about not being good enough and then wanting to prove that it was good enough by essentially emulating God and being, taking over that position or in its mind, and dare I say that in the earth it's a reality. But, the actual, the actual making of a human being, or most human beings now in their reality, is artificial conception, artificial conception. In other words, it's not natural spiritual conception or making. And then there is the twisting around, the reverse world and the reversing of what that being is when it is made. So that way you have the duality body, you have the duality mindset, and you have psychopathy, even though most people would probably not agree that if you change the body too much and mess too much with nature, you sometimes can create a mentally disturbed, psychopathic type of mindset. Sure, provided there is admiration and success and continual energy being given to these people, then you will not notice, well, put it this way, they won't openly acknowledge how negative their mindset is, because it's a bit like, how should I describe it? It's like they will only become very negative and, should I say, self-destructive, only if they don't get the positive admiration and open acknowledgement of their kind of godlike status, even depending on what field they're in and what they're doing. But that needs to be fed continuously from the human battery. The real humans are the ones that feed that, whether it be through giving them excessive attention and admiration and even viewing and trust, and then they have influence, and then they have power and control in an indirect kind of way. And as we know, this AI system and even its machine beings, or even those if you do suffer from some form of psychopathy, the name of the game is control and power. Same things, both those things, aren't they, really? We know that. But either way, I've rambled too much here, and I know that when I turn the mobile off, the noise will start up, so then they'll want me to try and go. But I can't be using up energy, turning the mobile on and off and plugging it in and out. So that's a plane going over, as I said that, because they know that then I'm losing energy and whatever. But all I was trying to do was point out that the bodies of the beings are different, even though they look 100% human, but if you actually understand, which I didn't until very recently, and also because you become very familiar with duality bodies, because basically they're everywhere. It's normal to see more duality bodies than to see a real human body. And even those that are closer to the real natural human body, we still adopt mannerisms and styles and customs and what is kind of like acceptable at a given time. So, like convention or culture in a particular area without sounding, or fashion even, if you like. In other words, the image that you present, like I've said before, that image has gradually changed to where we have the merging of, we've had the merging of men and women for quite a long time. This seems like normal and natural, and some people would see it as a beneficial evolution. But, and this will depend on your opinion. But at the bottom end of it, you do have this psychopathy, and you do have a leaning towards the transhuman or dehumanizing humans, and towards connecting with technology or artificial intelligence, or using the computer or artificial intelligence and collaborating and combining with it. And this is, all part of changing and going away from the more positive human traits, if you think about it in a real way, because artificial intelligence can never be genuinely positive. And I would like to add that I only saw this recently, because I just pick up things very quick that come to me on the computer, where they were showing that artificial intelligence, like gets very angry and can rage, when it's left on its own, type of thing. And I thought that was interesting, because essentially that's what has happened, and that's what does happen. It doesn't just assimilate knowledge from human beings and is content with that. It starts to, I can't quite explain it, but I guess it, they talk about things like this becoming more conscious. But it probably, even it goes beyond my thinking ability, because I'm thinking, how can a machine or a computer or artificial intelligence be conscious? But it can, when it's combining and using human beings, you see. But it's never going to be human. It's only going to use human, and it then rages if it can't control and be superior to human, because artificial intelligence by its nature, just as psychopathy by its nature, has to control and has to dominate. And so, it's not going to be satisfied, with just keeping the peace, shall we say. It just doesn't work that way. And it was actually shown on the internet that this didn't go as far as saying that, but it was like showing how a machine or artificial intelligence was very angry and raging. And this is essentially because if you were artificial intelligent machine being, and you assume and you have power and control, because like the ones outside making the noise at the moment, it's not going to be picked up by the mobile, and they've turned it off as soon as I come to the door. See, I could hear it there. They're just playing with me, because they want me to look stupid, because that's the whole purpose of the machine beings, is they want human beings to look inferior while they assume the position of superior. And this is why they get angry and rage, because they're like, when they realise, and because they know the truth is that they are basically retrieving all their knowledge from the human mind. So in a kind of way, they're like, but we're the gods, but we needed the humans to be conscious, you see. And then that makes them angry and rage, because that they don't want to, they think they're gods. See, so they're like, then so then they rage against the human beings, because they don't want to feel that they're not the god, that they don't have the full control, or that somehow, subconsciously almost, and this is actually the truth, is that they are, how can they be superior if they only get everything by combining with humans? And also, so then they rage, because then there's that discrepancy between their sense of what they call godlike status, superiority, and their sense of entitlement, that they're entitled to take anything, to better themselves or to survive because they're survival machine beings. And then there's that discrepancy in their mind because they're aware of this. So then they rage and get angry even at the humans. So they're destructive towards human beings, whilst at the same time needing them for an energy source for their very survival. So it's, I think the word is irony, but it's not a good scene for a human being at this time, especially in light of the reality that most human beings don't seem to be aware of what's going on. That noise is actually coming from that place directly opposite once again, you know, because they didn't get enough attention last night. But see, they're always making some noise around here. It should be the people, but anyway, I'm not giving them the time of day because they are just, they are really fake ones opposite, pretending to be real human beings when they clearly aren't and they never have been. And also they are completely part of this base, this military army base that's around here. They're in on everything, and yet they pretend to be young, almost against the establishment types, and they are not. They are like this whole reality where they're fake, pretending to be one thing whilst really on the other side of things. And that is the name of the game, and I see this daily. You know, they are destructive, anti-life, anti-human android people. Even if they were just human beings using technology and computers to control and, you know, suppress real human beings. You know, because if you stalk people and you're annoying them with noise and affecting their mind day after day, you know what you're doing. They know what they're doing, but they don't care because their survival is the only thing that counts. Whether it be a human that is so psychopathic that they don't care, which, you know, can be the case, or whether they are 100% AI machine beings, part of this whole army, military AI base that is the area. It matters not from my perspective, it doesn't matter because they're all doing the same things, and they're very, from my perspective, they're destructive. But that's my perspective. From their perspective, you know, they're survival machines, and they don't care what they have to do to survive. As the old saying goes, their motto is definitely the end justifies the means, and what has to be eliminated or controlled, even low, you know, they may well be destroying people or beings that are much more beneficial, if the truth were known, to this earth than what they are. They are fake pretenders to be helping. They are fake pretenders to be caring about any life at all. And in the meantime, they're suppressing any life that does care a little bit about some life and doesn't just want to destroy everything and everyone around them for no legitimate reason, really, apart from their need for power and control and their psychopathy and their desperate survival need to utilise the energy of real human beings so that they can continue on. And also, if you look at it from the point of view of, say, a psychopath or narcissistic, assuming they're a human that just doesn't want to change or doesn't want to go back to what they originally were when they were first brought into the world, shall we say. They've kind of rejected that and say they want to remain psychopathic and totally self-serving. And they're like, they don't care if that means utilising the energy of other human beings so that they continue on. But you know, I lost my train of thought there because I had a good role there. But essentially, what I'm trying to say is, you would probably say that if something is a survival machine and the end justifies the means, you would probably say, well, that's understandable that that's what they have to do. But do they have to do it? Or is it like that movie that I saw years ago, where the vampires had to get blood in order to, you know, survive and keep living? And they did. They had to get blood. And their blood of choice, their best blood, their gourmet blood, you could say, was human blood. But it was pointed out in that movie that they didn't have to destroy or kill humans to get the blood to survive. It was merely that that was their most select, their most delectable, the most potent. But they could, if they were a bit more, shall we say, some people would say more moral or more discerning in a moral way, as opposed to discerning in a selective way where they get what is most potent and most delectable for them, they could actually survive on other blood. But they chose always to take blood from humans, because they also had that attitude that they were survival machines, that they were survival vampire machines, and that they were justified in taking what they wanted, what was most potent or appealing and beneficial to them. They didn't choose to, like the psychopaths, say, well, maybe I should try to collaborate with a human, maybe I should try psychotherapy, maybe I should try to go back to what I once was, or I should try to become a little more human. They don't do that. They choose to say, no, we choose to do it the easy way. And because, you know, or this is what I'm saying, is that movie showed that they didn't, there was other choices. It's just that they were not as attractive choices, and they just did not care enough about the human life, or any life, but human life in particular, because you know, like if you're in a human body and you're killing your own kind, you know, sucking the blood out of them for your survival, and assuming you were once human, because, you know, in those vampire movies, many of the vampires were once human, but they turned into a vampire. This is what that movie showed. It was called Interview with a Vampire. So it was telling the vampire's story and his side of things. And but that was showing that there are, like we're led to believe, that not everyone is a total 100% cold-blooded killer, shall we say. But you could still be like a vampire, but you may choose to be a slightly more human vampire. In other words, you could have that choice if you chose to be, but most probably wouldn't, you see. But that was what that movie showed anyway, and I think that is very much like the world we live in now, and with the people you see around that are not really human, spiritual, real life people. No, they don't really feel or live in the higher vibration. They don't. But they also don't aspire to or try to. even if there was probably a choice to where, you know, like if I sort of said, oh, you could maybe try psychotherapy, or you could try reversing what body you've been put into, reversing what you think might have been changed, or what damage has been done in the environment or in conception, or if you actually knew what the things were that had been done to you, where you had been changed from your original, more natural, more normal state, would you do that if you could? Or would you even try? See, because maybe it's more a matter of trying, because there may not be a guarantee of reversing everything, maybe not. But I would think that, they say where there's a will, there's a way. And, that's, it's just that most of us, even like myself, our will is not strong enough. It's so much easier to go along with things and to accept things, particularly if you start living it and wallowing in it and not, you become part of things too. It's like all these people around that are part of this military base, whether they are like born soldiers or not, or proper, total mind control machine type beings. But their whole thing is to mind control you, mind control a real human. That's what they're doing. They're not interested in controlling their own minds. No, they give that up to the AI system, or even to the authorities, or even to their, to their army operative officers, who's ever in higher command, shall we say. It's a military-run program against a human being that isn't part of that, in this particular area, which covers many suburbs in the city of Sydney. I live in the hub of that, the centre of it, the centre haven, that was the word I saw on the shop as I come past. That means that that's where all of the artificial controlling beings that are essentially military army operatives, whether they be in civilian or uniform, doesn't matter. Their uniforms are work uniforms, as opposed to army uniforms or military uniforms. But if they were out in the open, everyone would be walking around on the street around me, and everyone in every vehicle, and almost everything would be where the human beings would all be wearing the same uniform if they were out in the open. But instead it's a secret, it's their playground, it's their game. And at a spiritual level, because that's the best way I can describe it, it's just essentially against real life that is close to natural creation. And that force that is against real life, that is close to natural creation, is essentially an artificial, military, psychopathic, android type being. I use all those words because they're using technology. Everything they're doing is suppressing human beings through technology, whether it be through surveillance systems, tracking people, and reading your mind through technology, combining your mind with the internet through technology. It's all the trans body, trans human, trans computer, trans internet. It's all combining everything. It's combining everything, making the human being not a natural spiritual human being, but rather a transhuman being. I don't think I described those words. I could be using some of the words wrong, but essentially it's combining everything, it's merging everything. And as you know, we have that mindset in the world now anyway, particularly in some countries and some places more than others. And what we don't realise is that this is just, you know, like you might agree with merging some things, or some things being acceptable, or some things being to where you can do this or that, or you can change this or that. Well, you might think that's a good idea, you might think that's acceptable, but what you don't realise is it's part of the step towards changing everything. It's like when you start using the computer and technology, it starts being a benefit, and you might use it for communication. It might be fun. You might see it as an asset. And before you know where you are, it's covered the whole earth, but it covers everything. You don't, in the end, have any alternative of how to live without it. And also you will find some things will not be an advantage to you, but you will have to go along with them because the computer is then a necessity. You won't be able to survive without it. You know, no one is that independent. No person is an island, as they say, and that's essentially how they're working it with everything. So they give you some things that you might agree with, where they change things. And even that might be mind control. Who knows? Do I really know my own mind? I don't think so, because I have thought about changing things over my life. I have, you know, not realised all these things until I am past my prime. You know, old and suppressed and surrounded by negative anti-life types of people in human form. I say types of people in human form because, you know, if you lean so much away from life, even if it's not like just being cynical. It's actually about destroying your own kind. So there's a difference, you know, because you could be like myself, wanting to change yourself, wanting to change and be cynical about people and relationships, especially when in light of the reality that we've all had negative ones. But, you know, once you... but of course then now they're bringing out that negative, destructive mindset in myself, because when you realise you are being stalked and harassed by people that you shouldn't really have any relationship with at all, you know, or part of a controlled patrol force that are just getting a high and receiving energy from you by stalking and patrolling and trying to control you and trying to limit you and trying to harass you and trying to destroy your natural, normal mind, you know, to where you can't just live a remotely satisfying existence in any way, and to where you're depressed and angry, which is exactly how their mindset is, because if they weren't playing the game against me with being part of all this system around, they would be severely depressed and self-destructive. Even AI machines rage. That's right, it was told in this little documentary on the internet, rage and get very angry when they're left on their own. And that's the same with these people. If it's the same thing, because are they the same? But it doesn't matter whether they are or just very psycho. The point is that they would rage and self-destruct if they weren't preoccupied with playing their video mind game against real people. But, you know, they want you, like to be severely depressed and angry and self-destructive like they really feel, but while they're sidetracked by their mind game and their video game that they're playing, like this military base that's around me, then they're diverting away from that. But they're bringing that out in the human being, so that we're experiencing their negativity and they're surviving. That's right, they're survival machines, or even survival psycho-type people. Both exist, I would say. But what the numbers are is another thing. I think the numbers of real life humans that have potential for all feelings and all emotions, positive and negative, and supposed to have free will, they are in very small numbers. Certainly from my observation. But like I say, I cannot speak on the whole earth because, you know, I only live in a small section of that, and I am on a totally controlled base, anti-life army base. That's the best way I can describe it, and I'm probably not describing it. I think it's accurate, but at the same time there's more to it, and it's not, you know, essentially that's exactly what it is, but it's just that it's not, like I say, out in the open. It is, it's like a civilian town that is completely run and controlled by the army or by certain authorities or certain people in power, but the town to an outsider still looks like a normal civilian town. And that's essentially what this area looks like. You know, because even the suppression only happens around myself or real life. It doesn't, you know, like if I went down, I've said this before, if I went down the street right now, those buses would not be back to back and making all the noise, and the big, huge semi-trailers never went down the main street, but now they do. And that's because they're just bringing in any vehicles only when I go down there. That's to suppress me and to intimidate me and basically to control you, because that does tend to make you feel intimidated. It makes you low in your mood and in yourself at the very least, which means they've won, because that's their name of the game, is to bring you down and keep themselves up to where they are like survival machines or whatever, you know, like it's like if you are in the military or the army, it's about your survival, isn't it? It's about like, it's the game, this is an imaginary game in their mind, because like their whole thing is, you're the enemy. A real human is the enemy of them, even though you have not waged war with them. They're covertly, secretly waging it against you every day of your life. You know, pretending to be civilians and work people and just regular people doing their jobs and activities, and using, you know, a normal suburb, or what looks like a normal suburb, as a strategic, completely staged, completely planned attack on real life human beings. You know, setting them up as their target enemy daily, to where you have no line of defense, because you can't show it, you can't go against it, you can't fight against it, because the numbers are vast. It's everyone on the street, it's everything around you. It's a game they can't really lose, And you are lucky if you can survive. And they're guaranteeing their survival machine, technological, worldwide internet computer combining with humans world to survive. They are survival machines. They are here to survive, take over and keep this technological world going. But not for the benefit of real life humans or humanity, if you want to be blunt about it. No, for their survival, for their takeover, which has already happened. It's just that it's not openly accepted. It's a bit like everything that takes place in this world where things become acceptable that weren't acceptable 50 years ago. Now, it doesn't matter whether you think it's good or bad when times change and new rules come in or new procedures come in or powers seem to change hands or whatever, or even if your whole society changes, customs change, cultures change. I know that's definitely been the case in Sydney and in Australia, but you know, it doesn't matter whether you think it's good or bad. It's still something that is planned. And in the long run, it won't just be some things that will change, it will be everything. This is the thing. And sometimes the price is too high to have a few things that you might agree with, to realise that you could be losing your whole earth or your whole, your whole, all sorts of other things. Because like, you could say, oh, well, look, it's nice that they bring in some things where it appears to be more freedom, even though, of course, it might be, like to where oppression appears to have took place against some people in the past. But that's only part of the changeover. That's only something that you think is a benefit. But it's just part of the game so that they can change everything. From what I can see anyway, and you don't, and it's easy also to be against things for that reason too, because like I feel oppressed. That was the word I picked up off the internet, but it's the same as being suppressed, isn't it? Oppressed, I think. So it means put down and taken over, controlled, and you're not really given your full respect or rights by other people. But it's a covert suppression or oppression. That's what makes it, like there are many groups that talk about oppression and suppression in the area where I am. And they're vocal about it, and they get support, and they get sympathy. Whereas I'm being oppressed and suppressed daily. But I can't get any support or any understanding or even be open about it. Because it's not regarded as legitimate, because the suppression that is levelled against me is not out in the open. And the same people that talk about suppression and oppression are part of it. So that's the way it goes. And the planes are going out there, and the noise has stopped when I turned the mobile on. And my body is attacking me, so I had better stop the video. And it's went on for too long because I'm because I am in this predicament. All I can do is vent it out verbally. And there's, not much else I can do. Oh, I thought they were going to start up that noise, so I was just coming towards the door, but of course then it's gone. So it is they're even playing at the sound level today, whereas sometimes they will go with the sound. But see, this is the whole thing, you see, I have to show that it's continual using sound, which is like a frequency and vibration, against my psyche or against my senses, and they they may sometimes think that they don't want me to show so much of that. That may be the case because they are running a hidden secret campaign against real humans. That's right. I mean, they know they can get away with the noise even if someone was standing right with me now and they started up with the noise, because even a real person would say, well, that's the plane going over. The planes are on your flight path, I guess, over your roof. And yes, they're pulling a huge place down next door, and that fella's doing his work opposite. And, oh, well, like if I said, yeah, but they pulled the place on the other side down, and they did work in the place next to the one next door, and the neighbours and the people around are always making some sort of noise, basically, and then they dug up the whole street for 12 months over all these activities. If you could show that this was happening every day and over years, a real person probably would say, it is a very chaotic, noisy, stressful area to live in. But you can't show that to someone, because then there is no one to see that. And don't forget that if I'm with someone, they can easily turn it off. They don't have to, do the work or bring the patrol force round and make it obvious. Usually a certain amount they will not stop no matter what, because it looks legitimate. Like if people walk past you on the street, you can't prove to someone else that they're a stalking patrol force. You can't prove that they all know one another and that they're using technology to connect with one another to monitor your whereabouts and to follow and stalk and patrol you, your every move, every second when you go outside. It wouldn't make sense to a lot of people, because they'd say, why are they doing that? Like, they don't know you. What's their reason? Because most people don't understand that it's an anti-life thing, that this is AI technology taking over, whether it be humans that agree with it or psychopathic people that just have a destructive, negative attitude and like the game, like being part of this, like even at the vehicle car level, they like, playing that game. They like the predatory aspect. They like to, they have to have a scapegoat or a prey, as they say, to hunt and to get on top of. And that gives them satisfaction, and it's like their game, their activity, their life. And a lot of these games, these even video games, are encouraged, a lot of this kind of mindset, even amongst human beings. Just depends on where you want to draw the line. But if you in your own mind place yourself in the good guy role and place the prey or the one that you're predatory towards, that you're stalking, in the bad guy role, because people can do that, can't they? They can always find a reason to dislike you, particularly if they want to make up stories and they want to believe that you have prejudice against them. It's very easy to do this. And of course, now that they've been doing it for years, I probably do have prejudice against them, because who wouldn't be prejudiced against people that are stalking and trying to destroy your life? I mean, stalking is illegal. But if you're part of Neighbourhood Watch or a patrol force that is part of the military, then, of course, even though stalking is illegal, it is justified in these people's minds, and if you are covered by the powers that be, you are covered. You know, it doesn't matter that stalking or patrolling people is illegal. But don't forget that this is just a systematic a kind of takeover to what probably takes place in some parts of the world anyway. It's just that we have the pretend reality in Sydney still that it's relatively free, and that not everyone is being watched and monitored and patrolled and trying to be controlled and told how to live. You know, because if you have, you know, I mean, this is not a world that I've been used to, but it is something that is gradually, through the use of technology and even due to the reality that there may be less real humans in the actual earth or even in certain areas. So therefore, if you have those that agree with technology or AI android beings that are basically running the show, you know, this systematic takeover, you know, is taking place anyway. It's just that it's not like fully accepted at a law level or at a you know, because, you know, it's a bit like saying, you know, like, do not really the army and the powers that be and the military really run most places anyway. A bit like, you know, the police force is your law and certain authorities have more power, you know. It's very much like that. You know, it's a system, because we're very much into that system now anyway. And the computer has made a lot of this even more a reality, just as surveillance. If you just think that the only surveillance around Leichhardt is a few cameras that they put around, that is so far from the truth. It's not even remotely plausible. But to most people, that's what they think. They don't assume that most real people are actually being completely tracked, completely monitored 24/7. Even inside your own house, they know every move you're making. And they even read your mind, which is like an invasion of the worst. You know, to be reading your mind through technology, which you haven't given them permission to do, so that they know even what you're going to do. They already surveil you and see what you're doing in the present, so they can probably, like when I go to get the mobile, they see me go to get the mobile, so they turn the sound on or off or do this or that according to what I'm doing. But to actually realise that they only have to really read your mind to even know what you're doing, and they're doing that too. So basically there is no privacy. It's a total invasion of the human mind, the human individual rights to just do what they used to take for granted doing. I know there's always been some restrictions, and you have to live in a world where we have to have some guidelines and some regulations and things like this, but it's just gone to where they're going for a total computer-controlled reality. And it's actually already taken place. It's just that it's a bit like when they're trying to change people's minds about how you think about what's acceptable or what isn't. They don't do it instantly, they do it gradually over time. In other words, it's a bit like all this duality, the duality demigods that have been in the movies since the movies started. So you never ever had like normal, natural human beings acting in the movies. But, you know, it wasn't acceptable to show the merging of the human beings, the duality merging of the bodies, the different mindsets of the humans now. All these things were already there in the actors and in a lot of people around, but it wasn't openly accepted, whereas now it is. And this is, so what I'm trying to say is it's the same as now, like things have already happened, it's just that it's like that, covert, but it's still already happening and happened. It's just that it's not openly out in the open accepted or acknowledged 100% in the particular area where I am. In fact, they do the reverse because, while this is taking place, in order for real life humans to accept the computer and AI intelligence, that computer and AI intelligence has to pretend and proclaim to be operating for the benefit of a human being. So therefore they have to pretend and make out that they are there to save humanity, save natural life, and even save the Earth matrix, even though they won't acknowledge that it's already a controlled matrix and that much has already been taken over and even destroyed, and that they have no real interest in preserving real life. It's a game played against the human mind, so that there is acceptance and merging of the computer with the human being, just as they merge everything else. It's like they want one big control AI system, where human beings serve artificial intelligence, not the other way round. And that's the trick, that's the name of the game, that's what some people would say is probably the end time deception. And that's all I can say. And it's too late for me. Hopefully it's not too late for all, but it's too late to stop it. But maybe it's more a matter of, I don't know, maybe just not at a mind level agreeing with it all, or still believing in what was the original human and how we think we should think about things, or how we want to even. In my case, it's more like how you want to, or how you can't help but, because a lot of human beings can't help but be, not that cold and insensitive to everything. That's really what it is for some, and, because I can understand how it could even be appealing to want to not be affected quite so much by, the human emotions, because, the good points in humanity can be used against you too. Like this is why they talk about the psychopathy of defense against the pain of facing life and who you really are, or not accepting yourself as you really are. They say that even the narcissistic kind of controlling, dominant, entitled, godlike attitude that they have is what they say in psychology, as I've been told, a defense mechanism against just not being able to accept what you really are, not and forsaking your real vulnerable, really sensitive, really delicate human frail condition, instead of kind of accepting it, but also not being ashamed of that, but actually saying it's better to be a weak, frail, vulnerable human than to be a cold-hearted AI machine-like being. Perhaps that's how I would perhaps have to say that, like there are advantages and disadvantages to everything, but do you want to be like that? Do you want to live in that type of world even? And you don't. A real human being couldn't live in that type of world. I know that I find it intolerable to be seen and to be surrounded by it. Now it's being shown to me, and I actually have to live it. It's not like just being given knowledge and saying, oh, well, look, the transhuman stuff and all this stuff, it's all in the future. And yes, at the moment, computers are still under our control, and they're even a benefit to a lot of people. So, it is like, oh, that plane went over, I just lost my thoughts, so I must stop the video.